Suge Knight just dropped a bomb from behind bars that has the entire internet losing its mind. In late October 2025, an audio recording leaked from inside California's Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility, and what's on that tape is either the most elaborate prison lie ever told or the key to unlocking hip-hop's biggest mystery. We're talking about Tupac Shakur, the man who was gunned down on the Las Vegas Strip almost 30 years ago. Except according to Suge, gunned down might not mean what we all thought it meant. The recording surfaced on a Burner X account called Makaveli Whispers, and within hours it had spread across every platform imaginable. 6 minutes of audio, one voice, and a story so wild that even the most dedicated conspiracy theorists had to take a step back and ask themselves if this was actually happening. Let me break down exactly what's allegedly on this tape and why it's got everyone from music journalists to federal investigators paying attention. The voice on the recording reportedly belongs to Suge Knight, co-founder of Death Row Records and the last person to see Tupac alive before those shots rang out. Voice analysis conducted by specialists at Berklee College of Music allegedly showed an 88% match to Knight's vocal signature, with no signs of digital manipulation or editing. That doesn't prove the content is true, but it does mean someone didn't just throw this together in a basement with some audio software. According to the leaked audio, there was a secret plan in place on the night of September 7th, 1996, a plan known only to 3 people. Suge claims those 3 were himself, a doctor he describes as a paid insider at University Medical Center in Las Vegas, and someone he refers to only as Panther Ghost. That last name has sent researchers down a rabbit hole because the most obvious connection is Assata Shakur, Tupac's godmother and a former Black Panther who has been living in exile in Cuba since 1984. For those who don't know the background, Assata escaped from a New Jersey prison where she was serving a life sentence and eventually made her way to Cuba, where Fidel Castro granted her asylum. She's been on the FBI's most wanted terrorist list since 2013. And there have always been whispers in certain circles that if Tupac ever needed to disappear completely, she would have the connections to make that happen. The tape allegedly describes an escape route that sounds like something out of a spy thriller. According to Suga, a black Escalade was positioned 2 blocks away from where the shooting went down. The plan was supposedly to get Tupac into that vehicle and rush him to a private area at McCarran Airport, which is now called Harry Reid International. From there, connections through what he calls Fidel's old line would smuggle him out of the country entirely. But what about the body? What about the death certificate? What about the funeral that millions of fans mourned? This is where the recording gets into territory that's genuinely hard to process. Suge allegedly claims that hospital records were fabricated to show Tupac flatlining after 6 days in intensive care. He suggests that a body switch occurred using a homeless individual of similar build who was found on the Las Vegas Strip. The implication is that while the world watched news coverage of Tupac's death on September 13th, 1996, the real Tupac was already gone. Not dead, just gone. To understand why anyone would believe something this extreme, you have to go back to that night in Las Vegas and understand what actually happened. Tupac and Suge had just left the MGM Grand after watching Mike Tyson knock out Bruce Seldon in the first round. Death Row Records was at the peak of its power. All Eyes on Me had gone diamond. Tupac was arguably the most famous rapper on the planet, but fame in that world came with enemies, and that night, one of them was in the same building. Security camera footage shows Tupac and his crew spotting Orlando Anderson in the casino lobby. Anderson was a known affiliate of the Southside Crips, and there was bad blood between them. What happened next was caught on tape. They beat him down right there in the MGM Grand, throwing punches until security pulled them apart. It was street justice playing out in front of hundreds of witnesses. A few hours later, Suge and Tupac were rolling down the strip in a black BMW 750IL. They stopped at a red light near the intersection of Flamingo Road and Koval Lane. A white Cadillac pulled up on the passenger side, and then shots started flying. Tupac was hit 4 times. Suge took a bullet fragment to the back of his head, but managed to make a U-turn and drive toward the hospital before police stopped him. Tupac was rushed into surgery at University Medical Center, where doctors removed his right lung in an attempt to save his life. He fought for 6 days. On September 13th, 1996, at 4:03 in the afternoon, Tupac Amaru Shakur was pronounced dead from respiratory failure and cardiopulmonary arrest. He was 25 years old. That's the official story. That's what the death certificate says. That's what has been accepted as fact for nearly 3 decades. But Suge Knight has always been the wild card in this narrative. He was right there when it happened. He saw everything. And for years, he's dropped hints that there's more to the story while refusing to give a straight answer to anyone. In various interviews over the years, Suge has said things like, "Tupac's not dead, he's somewhere," and "I know things that would blow people's minds." Most people dismissed it as a man trying to stay relevant, or maybe just trying to mess with fans who desperately wanted to believe their hero was still alive. But this leaked recording takes it to a completely different level because it allegedly contains specific details, names, locations, a timeline of events that supposedly happened while the rest of the world was watching news coverage of a tragedy. The account that posted the original audio, Makaveli Whispers, had 0 posting history before uploading the clip. Within 12 hours, the recording had been downloaded and re-uploaded thousands of times. The original account was suspended, but by then it didn't matter. The tape was everywhere. Hip-hop journalists started reaching out to their sources. Former death row affiliates were getting calls asking if they knew anything. Legal experts weighed in on whether the recording could be considered a confession to anything or if it was protected speech. Some people pointed out that even if Suge was telling the truth about his beliefs, that wouldn't make those beliefs accurate. A man in prison for 28 years might convince himself of all kinds of things. Others noted that the level of coordination described in the tape would have required dozens of people to stay silent for almost 30 years. The doctor, the person who allegedly provided the substitute body, whoever was waiting at the airport, whoever was on the other end in Cuba. The idea that not a single one of those people would have talked or been caught or left evidence behind strains credibility to its breaking point. But here's the thing that keeps this story alive, and it's the same thing that has kept Tupac conspiracy theories circulating since 1996. There are genuine unanswered questions about what happened that night. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department never made an arrest in Tupac's murder. Orlando Anderson was investigated as a suspect but was never charged, and he was killed in a gang-related shooting in 1998. The white Cadillac was never found. The weapon was never recovered. For a shooting that happened on one of the busiest streets in America, with dozens of potential witnesses, the case went cold almost immediately. In September 2023, Las Vegas police finally made an arrest. Dwayne "Keffy" D. Davis, a former Compton Crips member and Orlando Anderson's uncle, was charged with murder. Davis had previously admitted in interviews and in a memoir that he was in the Cadillac that night and that he provided the gun used in the shooting. His trial is ongoing as of late 2025. Some people see that arrest as proof that the official story is correct and that Tupac was killed in a gang retaliation shooting. Others see the 27-year gap between the murder and the arrest as evidence that something was being covered up. The truth is probably simpler and sadder than either extreme. Sometimes cases go unsolved because witnesses don't cooperate. Evidence gets lost and investigations get deprioritized. It happens all the time, especially when the victims and suspects come from communities that have complicated relationships with law enforcement. So where does that leave us with this leaked tape? Suge Knight is serving a 28-year sentence for voluntary manslaughter after running over 2 men with his truck in 2015, killing one of them. He's not getting out anytime soon. Whether this recording is a genuine confession of something he believes happened, a desperate attempt to stay in the news, or a complete fabrication that someone created using his likeness, it has accomplished one thing. It has reminded the world that almost 30 years later, we're still talking about Tupac Shakur. Maybe that's the real point. Maybe that's what Suge wanted all along. Or maybe, somewhere out there, there's a 64-year-old man who used to go by the name Makaveli, watching all of this unfold and smiling. I'm not saying I believe it. I'm just saying the questions haven't stopped. What do you think happened on September 7th, 1996? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to see more deep dives into stories like this, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. I'll catch you in the next one.